Hi, it is Dr. Lanise, and I am a best-selling author, speaker, blogger, social media expert, and I take care of sick babies for a living. I love to help tired, stressed out, frustrated moms who have babies in the NICU. I want to help them better understand what's going on with their baby, more effectively communicate with their NICU team, and most of all know that they can make it through the NICU journey. So I am back today with you for another weekly Wednesday Facebook Live. I'm on here super early because in a little bit I will be heading out to take care of the babies. But I did not want to skip out on my Facebook Live. So instead of 7 p.m., which is normally when this takes place, we're doing it at 7 a.m. this morning. And hopefully you guys will check out this video later because I know it's kind of early right now. So I wanted to talk to you this morning about some news that's been buzzing around in the media right now. So for those of you who are fans of Beyonce, including myself, you might be following all of the news and discussion that's going on about the twins, right? So according to, maybe various news sources, supposedly the twins are born, they may be about a week old, we know they were early, and it sounds like they are quote unquote under lights, which sounds like they may be having some phototherapy. So for those of you who might be moms out there who are pregnant, you might be having twins, you might be wondering, well, I have twins, am I going to deliver early, and what's that going to mean for how long they might need to be in the hospital? So that is what I want to talk to you about this morning. So first of all, to answer that question, it's about a 50-50 chance. So there has been some research studies that have looked at this, as far as how many twins, what percentage of twins deliver early, and it's about 50%, right? So it's about a 50-50 chance that if you have twins, you're going to deliver early. And in fact, they say if you have triplets, then there's about a 90% chance that you will deliver early. So there can be many different reasons why this is, right? So one thing is we never really exactly know the cause of why some moms go into early labor. But we do know that if you are a mom who has multiples, meaning you're carrying more than one baby, we know that that increases your chance of delivering early. So just by, being pregnant with twins, that means that you have a higher chance of maybe going into early labor. Some other reasons are when you have twins, sometimes they don't always grow the same. And so there may be one baby that's a little bit behind and may not be growing well. And so your OB doctors are going to be watching very closely. And so they might say to you, you know what, this baby's not growing well. They're getting further and further behind. So they may decide that they want to deliver the twins a little bit earlier, because we know that if something's stopping appropriate growth while the baby's inside, there's not a lot that they can do about it. But once the babies are delivered, right, we can do things. We can help baby with nutrition and things like that to help the baby grow and develop. So that could be a reason why moms who have twins deliver a little bit early. Another reason is it may depend on what type of twins you have, right? So in some cases, twins may have their own individual amniotic sac, okay, when they're born, and they each have their own placenta. But sometimes, even though the babies have their own sac, they may share a placenta. And sometimes when that happens, something called twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome can occur. And basically that means they have this shared placenta, and even though each baby kind of has their own direct supply, sometimes those connections sort of mix together, and you have one baby who's getting more of the fluid and more of the blood supply, so that baby ends up being bigger and getting more fluids, and then the other baby is much, much smaller because they're getting deprived of some of that blood supply coming from the placenta. And so as a result, sometimes those babies need to be delivered early, because if things keep going that way, there can be many complications with that. Another instance, right, you can have twins who not only share the placenta, but they share the amniotic sac as well. So you can imagine they have the same sac, they have the same placenta. We know that those babies are at even higher risk to have complications. And one of the reasons is that umbilical cord that's connected to the placenta, which is again, right, how the babies kind of get their blood supply, nutrition, and oxygen, that can get tangled inside, and sometimes the cord can get compressed or sort of cut off, right? And the easiest way to think of that is if you were to have like a garden hose, right? If it was all tied up or tangled, or something was flattening it out or blocking off a part of it, right? Then you would have decreased water flow that's going out through the end of that spout. So it's the same way that you would think about the umbilical cord, right? If it's getting tangled or something is sort of cutting off or compressing it, then you're getting lack of blood supply to those babies. And so that's a higher chance to happen in that situation. And so a lot of times you may deliver early for that reason as well. But the greatest thing to know or remember about that that is you're going to be following along, making sure you go to all your appointments with your OB doctors. So they're going to be talking to you about what's specifically going on with your babies and how they're doing. And then they'll let you know, they'll come up with a plan as far as when is the safest time to deliver them. So now I want to talk about something else, which if you've been following me, you know that I've talked about it before, but kind of in honor of Beyonce and the Twins, I want to touch on this again, and that is our late preterm infants, right? So if you are having twins and you might deliver early, doesn't mean that, you know, you're going to have a micro preemie, a super tiny baby that's going to be in the NICU, you know, your baby's be in the NICU for months and months. But a lot of moms will make it to that late preterm category, and for late preterm, that's when you deliver somewhere between 34 weeks of pregnancy and 37 weeks of pregnancy. And the reason that we make this distinction, right, is because we know that if you make it to at least 34 weeks and up to 37, right, then that baby's course is going to be much different than a baby who's less than 34 weeks, right? They tend to have less complications and they tend to be in the NICU for a shorter amount of time. But at the same time, they're not quite term yet. So sometimes they need a little extra help and sometimes they do have to come to the NICU. But the good news to keep in mind, right, is even if your twins deliver right in that time frame of 34 to 37 weeks, it does not automatically mean that they are definitely going to come to the NICU, right? It's going to kind of depend where you fall and sort of where you're at. So most hospitals, I think a lot of hospitals will have a policy that if your baby is 34 weeks or below, that's an automatic admission to the NICU because we just know that those babies are going to need more support. But if you make it to that 35 to 37 week range and your baby does well at delivery and isn't needing any breathing support, then your baby will likely be able to go to the nursery and then has an opportunity or that chance to be able to go home with you in 2 days or 3 days or whenever you're getting discharged from the hospital as a mom. So it's just going to depend. But today I'm going to talk about 5 reasons or 5 issues that babies may have, twins may have in this late preterm age for why they might need to come to the NICU, okay? So the first one that I'm going to talk about is jaundice, right? Which is what it maybe sounds like is going on with Beyonce's twins. So jaundice is when the baby has yellow color to their skin and to their eyes. And essentially that happens because of a buildup of a chemical or a molecule called bilirubin. And what happens is bilirubin is released from the blood cells when they are broken down. So this is a natural process in babies, right, where the red blood cells get broken down and they release this bilirubin and it passes through the liver and then basically gets eliminated by the baby when they pee and poop. So babies are eating and they pee and they poop and they get rid of this bilirubin level. So jaundice is something that doesn't just affect preemies, it affects full-term babies as well. But we know that our preemies are at a higher risk to get jaundice and then they tend to need phototherapy, which is a treatment for it for a little bit longer. So this is kind of what happens. So as part of being born early, you know, sometimes their liver is a little bit more immature. And so that process of going through and getting eliminated is not as efficient, right? And sometimes, right, these babies have a hard time eating, especially if they're 34 weeks. And so they might not be pooping right away. And so then, you know, they'll need a little bit of extra help, right, to sort of get rid of this jaundice. Now, there can be many different types of causes of jaundice, but right now I'm just talking about run-of-the-mill jaundice that babies can get early on in life. So what we do to treat that is we put the baby under phototherapy lights. That helps to sort of break down the bilirubin and help it to get eliminated. So there are some babies who will need help with that. Now, not every baby, right, even if they're late preterm who has jaundice, may need to come to the NICU. Sometimes they can get phototherapy in the well baby nursery. However, if the level is too high, you know, depending on how old the baby is, or it's rising too quickly, then that is definitely a reason to come down to the NICU so it can be monitored more closely. And sometimes there's other things that we need to do to help bring that level down. And the reason why is because we worry that if the jaundice level is too high and it keeps getting higher, ultimately that can affect the baby's brain and they can have severe complications from that, right? So that's why we want to stay on top of the jaundice and make sure that that's something that we treat. But that could be one reason, right, why late preterm babies might need to be admitted to the NICU. Another reason number 2 that they might need to come down is for low blood sugar. So we know that when babies are born early or they're a little bit smaller in their weight, which happens a lot of times with twins, they tend to be smaller than full-term babies. sometimes they have a harder time maintaining their blood sugar, right? So they just don't have that extra sugar stores in their body as a full-term baby would have. And like I mentioned, sometimes they can also have a hard time eating. So sometimes those things combined, their blood sugar is low. And we don't like babies, whether they're full-term or they're born early, we don't like that blood sugar to be low for a long amount of time, because again, that can have impact on the brain and impact on the baby's development. So if we get a call from the nursery and the nurse is telling us that, they checked the baby's blood sugar and it was low, and they maybe put the baby to the breast, or they gave the baby a bottle and we check it again and it's still low, that's a reason that even a baby who looked great at delivery and was able to stay in the nursery didn't have to come down to the NICU with us. That's a reason when they need to come down, just to give them a little extra help, right? So we'll add on fluids to help give the baby a little extra sugar until, they're kind of building up their stores and they're eating more, and that they're able to sort of maintain their blood sugar on their own. But that is absolutely a reason why sometimes twins and sometimes preemies will come down to the NICU when they're sort of in that 34 to 37 week range, or really more the 35 to 37, because if they're 34 weeks, they're already going to be with us, right? So the third reason why babies may come down is that they have a hard time maintaining their temperature. They have a hard time keeping warm. So just like how they don't have enough sugar stores in their body, they don't have as many fat stores. And because they don't have as many fat stores, they just have a harder time keeping warm. And babies at this age, right, when they're learning how to eat, they're actually expending energy, right? They're burning calories as they do that. And to keep warm, they have to burn calories and expend energy as well. And so some babies, when they are born a little bit on the early side, they have trouble kind of doing both of those at the same time, and sort of one of them gets compromised. Maybe they're not eating well, and so the sugar drops low, or because they're eating well and they're burning those extra calories doing that, then they have a hard time staying warm. And so that is a reason that they come down to the NICU, so we can put them on a warmer or put them in an isolette so that they don't have to struggle as hard or work as hard to maintain their energy while they're learning to eat. So that is another reason why we have that baby who might be late preterm who comes down with us to the NICU. Fourth reason could be, again, something that I've talked about before, is that the babies might be having issues with their breathing and need a little bit of extra support at delivery. So again, this is something that can happen to full-term babies as well, but we know that sometimes the lungs are not fully developed in our preemie population, even when they make it to sort of this late preterm category. And so they may need more help with more oxygen and breathing support after delivery. And so that is a reason why they would come down right away to the NICU after they are born. So that is another reason sometimes that they would need a little bit of extra help. And then finally, reason number 5, which is last but not least, could be the birth weight, right? So I said already, sometimes when you have twins, we know that they're going to be smaller. And then when babies are born early, we know their birth weight tends to be a little bit smaller. And so sometimes, just like how we have a policy, if the baby's 34 weeks or less, that's an automatic reason for them to come to the NICU. Sometimes if they're less than 5 pounds, again, for some of the reasons that I talked about, right? Those babies are smaller, so they're going to have a hard time maintaining their temperature, and they're going to have a hard time maintaining their blood sugar level. So that's a reason why we just say, we need to have those babies come to the NICU so that we can monitor them a little bit more closely and see how they're doing. Now, sometimes it's just for, maybe 12 hours or so to sort of observe them and see how they do. And sometimes it's a little bit longer, right? So it's just going to depend. We know that all babies will lose weight in the first week of life. But when babies are born early, it takes them a longer amount of time to sort of regain that weight back. So we want to make sure that babies aren't going to lose too much weight in the first few days of life. And sometimes, again, they may need some preemie formula or some extra fluids in the beginning to help them maintain their blood sugar and to make sure that they are gaining weight well. Okay, so those are 5 reasons why a baby who is born in that late preterm category might need to come to the NICU. Parents always want to know, well, what does that mean as far as how long will my baby need to be in the NICU? So usually if your baby is 34 weeks, I kind of tell my parents, keep in mind that your baby could be with us for 2 weeks, right? Some babies it's a little bit earlier, and some babies it's a little bit later. But by the time they learn how to eat and suck and swallow and do all of those things, maintain their temperature, keep their blood sugar up, be able to, do everything that they need to do to go home, it usually ends up being about 2 weeks. For our babies who are more 35 to 37 weeks, I sort of tell parents to plan in about a week because, again, making sure that they're gaining weight well and coming off of any warmth and the isolate that they're getting and being in an open crib and eating on their own and not being on fluids and all those different types of things, those babies, it sort of takes them about a week to figure that out. So that means, when we're thinking about Beyonce and the twins, that it makes sense, right? That they've been in the NICU for a week so far. And, we don't know. It might be not just the phototherapy, but maybe one of these other things I talked about might be a reason why they're in the NICU as well. So I hope you enjoyed this talk. I am wishing Beyonce and the twins and Jay-Z, a safe journey home for the babies, and I'll be excited to hear more detailed information coming directly from the source when they decide to, release information about the babies. But thanks for checking out this video. I know that I'm on here earlier. I see you, Dr. Dre. I'm actually about to get off and head out to work so I can take care of the babies. But once again, I am Dr. Lanice. Thank you for listening to this video this morning. Follow me all across social media as @Dr. Lanice MD. That's the @ symbol, DRLAUNICE MD. So check me out. If you are a mom who has a preemie in the NICU, or for some reason you're pregnant and you're going to deliver early, and you want to be part of a community that's just for preemie moms, where you can talk about things, ask questions. I have a group. It's called Each Little Step with Dr. Lanice, and we talk about all things preemie, all things NICU, and it's just for moms like you, preemie moms. So on my Facebook page, click on the groups link and ask to join my group. My website is done. It's up and running. So to learn more information about me, also check out my website. It is www.drlanicemd.com. And so once again, I'm here every Wednesday for a Facebook Live. Hopefully next week it will be at 7 p.m. But I hope to see you next week, and I will see you all across the web. Have a great day, guys.